Hi. I believe that a lot of digital publishing projects end up in a bit of a karaoke situation. And first, before I really begin, I'll just show a couple of videos and try to explain that.
What you doing on your back? Doing on your back?
This is perhaps one of the really worst karaoke performances I've ever seen. It gets worse. Okay. I think you get the picture. I can't bear to see anymore. But on a lot of digital publishing projects, we do design first. We do a lot of business planning first. Then we do design, conceptual work, and templating. And then at some point, we get to the content part. And I agree completely on the keynote today that we need to talk with clients about content a lot earlier in the process. But the thing is that it actually gets really worse than this. So I'm also going to show you something called killer karaoke. Do you know this? Okay.
Right now, he's probably slow dancing with a bleach blonde tramp, and she's probably getting frisky. Right now, he's probably buying Oh, right now, he's probably buying some dollars worth of
Okay. I can't bear to see anymore now. It's too painful. So, this is a fine picture of from another killer karaoke session. What I mean with this is that we get content editors up on a stage that we have built for them, and then we try to get them to perform there. But the templates that we have built for them, they were originally designed for something else because we actually faked the content or we duplicated the content earlier in the process. So not only do we put editors up on a really fragile stage here, but we also try to disrupt their performance. So, and that's the idea of killer karaoke here. First of all, I wanted to hear how many agency people are here. Could you just raise your hand? And how many clients? Okay, not that many clients. Okay. As agency people, we get the question all the time. So when will we get back-end access? When will you hand over the keys to the CMS with the new templates? When do we get our content editors into the system so that they can start working on it? And what we heard from the previous talk was speaking from the business side. I'm going to try to translate all that into what I see as a creative person doing the creative planning and creative processes on projects and talking to clients about how can they get their content done in a better way. And it's a much simpler process I'm proposing here. It's a really simple approach, and I've tried it out a couple of times, and it works quite beautifully. So I want to start with giving you this quote from Lisa Reichelt. I found the design process utterly transformed once I decided to stop trying to be an expert and start trying to encourage a culture of experimentation. And she wrote that in a blog post called Experimentation Beats Practice. And it's influenced me quite a big deal. Because what she says is that she's just stopped trying to be the UX mentor expert and just got clients to start with their content and just prototype really early, test really early. And that's the process I try to embrace here. I'm really not a content-first expert. I'm the creative lead at an agency, and I just think that content first is something I really want to move further into. So this talk is also just to give you a glimpse into, okay, what's the creative guys thinking when they think of content and consulting clients about this. And I've been doing web projects before content management systems came around, and obviously I've done projects with CMS work for many, many years now. But there's one thing that really hasn't changed. This thing here, Microsoft Word. So I think on a lot of projects, there is a race between the CMS and Word. So you get a small competition, and it's about who gets to log in first in the CMS or in Word. Do you actually get to hand over the keys to the CMS before the client opens up Word? Because when they start opening up Word, they start to produce content there, and they forget about all the planning that you've done with them earlier on the project. And it's not really to diss clients or anything. This is a totally normal way to work, and I think a lot of it has to do with archiving content. And recently I talked this over with a really big client of ours, and they said, could we just get Type 3 to integrate better with Word? Because that would really make sense to them. And I had never heard that before, but it was just, first I thought, no, you shouldn't use Word at all. But in many cases it does make sense when you have journaling system or archiving systems where they need to store their content in Word, they have tight Word integration there. So this hasn't changed, and maybe it won't for many years, I'm not sure. But we are going to propose a couple of new ways to do this. So in order to get inside this content-first thinking, I'm going to go through these 3 topics here. First of all, habit changes, which is a really big part to this. And I'm going to talk a bit about the process that we use. And finally, I'm trying to give the answer from the CMS side. How can the content management system help with this process? So first up, habits. There are 3 components to habits. If you think about nail biting, for example, not totally unsimilar to writing in Word, you have a cue or a trigger that gets you to do what you've done for a long time, so you do it over and over again. You have a routine where you actually perform the habit, and then you have the reward afterwards. And it's extremely hard to change the habit of working in Word with your content and then copy-pasting it into the content management system afterwards, because it's a habit. We've done it for so long, and clients have done it for like 10 years now. That's the process they've used for such a long time. And I think both clients and agencies have to take each other in the hand and start doing this in a new way, because it's just not smart, and I'm going to tell you why. So this is a really simple example of a web page. It's a really, really funny article, by the way, if you haven't read this. It's completely crazy. There are hundreds of comments on this thread here about why the White House didn't use WordPress. It's really, really a lot of fun to a CMS crowd. So, as many of you know, this is a very typical way that content is actually seen. It's not seen in the presentation template. It's seen in another application, in an RSS reader, or with Pocket, or Instagram, or you get the content to social media where you see something completely else. And of course, you end up on the website in many cases, but not always. And if you have applied a content-first approach, content is just more easily shared because it's not that intertwined with the presentation anymore. So, I'm going to give you a couple of case studies of real-world examples of me trying to approach projects with this content-first process. For a larger client in the education sector, they asked us to do like a shared content management platform for 10 of their institutions. And probably you all know this problem that you want to share some code or some development, and then it gets a bit cheaper, but you have like a gazillion needs that need to fit together, and that's a really hard thing to do the user experience planning for. And I came up with this extremely simple drawing. Of course, there was a long process before this where we talked about the KPIs of the project and found out, or did research with the client, found out what is it that they are going to achieve on these websites. But it ended up with this super, super simple drawing. So we said, okay, we're doing shelves, and we're going to put different things on those shelves, and each shelf has a topic. And that's basically it. So we could do variations of that quite endlessly. And then I drew this other really, really simple drawing about filtering. Okay, so you can get different content types highlighted across your topics. And that was, again, really, really simple. So, and here the fun part starts, because this is an extremely early template. I did nothing between this and that other than sitting together with the developer and the client too. So we got together, me, the client, and the developer, and we built this in Typo 3 with the HTML template there. And so it was just only based on that simple drawing, and then of course all the more business planning or the analytical side of things to the project. So we started iterating, and of course at some point it was even more simple HTML than this, but again, really, really rough, and then we kind of iterated on top of that. So today this is the end result. It's not that far from the first HTML, but it just grew from there. This is another example. It's from the Danish Refugee Council. And this is also just without any prototype tools, without any photoshopping, no wireframes, nothing than really, really good planning and talking to the client first, drawing some sketches, and then again, getting the content in really, really early, talking a lot with the client about the content production, and then just doing the template right away. So, here's an example of the subpage. So we got this content in really, really early on, so we could see how will this actually work, and we could start building the template on top of the content instead of the other way around. And again, like the other example I showed you, it all just started with scribbles like this, really. And it got from here to the actual template directly with no steps in between, because we were so extremely focused on the content side and presenting the content in a good way for the content to really live, instead of trying to build the content into a specific form or a specific visual language. We did it the other way around. This is just another example of one of my early sketches. Again, HTML based on this. So, number 2, I'm going to talk a bit more about the process. And first of all, you've heard this many, many times. You need to start smaller. Instead of making these huge, huge, huge plans together with your clients, you need to start smaller, get them to begin with the content earlier on, and then build on top of that. So we've all tried the production delays because of content, as the keynote was also talking about. And what I really encourage clients and other agencies to do is to get the website to a launch-ready state as early as possible in the project phase. And that's a lot easier to say than to do in practice. Absolutely. It's really hard to do it. But I've seen examples of it, and when it's done like that, it's transformative, really. It's such a better way to do a project, and less stressful as well. So, how do we do that? First of all, of course, in the Agile process, we have a really, really tight collaboration with the client. And of course, the client needs to be able to do that, to allocate the resources, to sit together with not only project managers, but with the UXers as well. That's extremely important. And then what we do is that we get the clients inside the content management system basically from day one. So they can start build their and write their content, write their text, put in their images in the repository extremely early on. And then I, as a UXer, can step in and see, okay, what is the real content going to be like? What is realistic content instead of all this fake content we use all the time with lorem ipsum text or copy-pasting from the old website into actual prototypes and all that. It's just not realistic. Instead, I can look at real content and say, okay, how can I give a great form to this? And it's really very simple. The hard part is breaking the habit that we've been so used to working in the other way that it's extremely hard to stop biting your nails, for example. It's the same, basically. It's habit change. So, again, stop faking the content. When you do that, all kinds of weird things happen. That when you, as a designer, write or interaction designer, when you write a headline in Axure and then show that to the client and they say, yeah, but it's not going to be like that. And then you spend a lot of time talking about what the content should be like instead of just getting your content authors to actually do the content from the start. And then again, build the templates based on that. So a simplified version of the process here. We get content in first, and then we do really rough HTML and templating based on the real content. And then we do flows. So one of the things that's really good about this process is that you can build the page tree or the hierarchy or your taxonomy in the site very early on. And then what then happens is that you can get the user flows. You can actually see, okay, what's this experience going to be like? Instead of having to prototype that and then afterwards do it all over again in HTML and the CMS. One of the great advantages of this is that you can test really early when you have like really rough HTML templates, but with a real page flow or real flow through a site or your whatever it is that you publish, and you can get that tested. You get the experience really, really early on for your own testing, but also for external testing. So it's like paper prototyping, but with real content and inside the CMS. So what is also happening here is that you do production-ready HTML, but the raw HTML. So you don't have to do things twice on a project. You actually save quite a bit of time if you do it like this. And then, of course, you iterate and you get to a launch date as early as possible in the process so that you can basically say, okay, now it's actually ready to launch, but it's before the deadline, so now we can start polishing instead of doing it the old-fashioned way. How many of you have experienced this, delays, because of content? Hands up? Okay. Me too, everyone. So one of the things that I have seen is that there's been a switch here over the years because it didn't used to be like this. On projects that I did in 2001, it was always the agency that was delayed. So because we had so many problems with technical matters and all kinds of weird stuff that in many, many projects the content was actually there. And then the agency kind of failed. But now it's really the other way around. And that's why I, as a UXer, talk a lot to clients about the content production really early on in the projects, because I don't want to see the project fail because of content production. That's just a horrible experience. And not just the project can fail because of bad content that's produced to fit into templates, but it's also just the amount of work you need to put into producing content. And especially when we talk about personalized content, as we also talked about yesterday, this gets even worse because you have clients really struggling to just produce one base layer of content, and then someone discussed with the agency early on in the project that, yeah, we want to do really strong personalization. So please, content authors, can you do 8 times the amount of work and do 8 variations of a header image? That takes an awful lot of time. So again, get to a launch-ready state much, much earlier in the process. One other thing that I do is to encourage clients to do this. When they have put in their content in the repository, matched it to a hierarchy or a taxonomy, then I get them to print out the pages or print out the website and put it on the wall. It's an extremely simple process, and magazines have been doing this for many, many, many years. But what it does is that it gives the client a physical overview. Okay, how far are we actually from a launch-ready state? And that can be with text or images or video or whatever. Of course, there are many advanced projects where it's hard to do this, but in many different projects, it's a really, really good thing to do, to just print out your website or your app or your mobile site, whatever it is, and then say, okay, I've written this text here, I've done that video there, I need to iterate here, I need to improve on that there, but we are actually already on a launch-ready state. And that works really well for a lot of clients. So, the last thing I'm going to talk about is the content management system, because I really would like to use the CMS to advance this change in projects. I think there is an opportunity for the CMS to be the habit changer. Because what often happens is that if we give editors a user interface to fill out, they really want to succeed at that. It's a very, very simple human mechanism, I think. You get an interface, and there is a gamification element to it in some way. You want to succeed, you want to be good at that, so you fill out the form fields. And if we structure the content management system to further a content-first approach or to advance that, then I think we can naturally get editors to work in a better way. And I think that should improve a lot of projects. So, the raw content mode of Typo 3 Neos does many different things. But one of the things, or one of the ways that you can look at it, is that it's word inside the content management system. So the only barrier here is to get authors to log in, to give them the access to do this raw content first, and then also, of course, figure out, based on your specific organization and the demands there, how do you deal with journaling or archiving if you need to archive content that that goes into the website. That can be a problem, absolutely. But the idea here is that we do our text editor-like experience inside the content management system instead of, the usual back-end layout. And here you can really do content first very, very easily. And that does not only count for images, you can also do this with all kinds of other content. This is actually from the demo side of Typo 3 Neos, the Alpha 7 demo side. And it's really not finished. The demo site does not at all look as good as I want it to be. But you know what? What we did was that we got to a launch-ready state very early on. And then we said, okay, this is not at all perfect, but it's okay. We can get it out now in this Alpha 7. And it looks a bit like this, something like that. It's a bit of an earlier screenshot. But this is the Alpha 6 demo site, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that we got to the launch-ready state really early, and then we started iterating. And again, this is also just done from paper to HTML, and with a lot of focus on okay, how can we get content editing inside really early. Another example is a mobile site here. This is a real example, actually, of a mobile site that we do at the agency I work for. You could also do this in Typo 3 Neos. So if the mobile channel is the most important place your content will live, then give your editors access to writing the content in this view. We can do that with Typo 3 Neos, absolutely. And it just furthers another way of thinking, because if we do this, then the editors will start to think about, okay, how is my content going to be experienced in a mobile view, instead of writing it in the totally abstract way. And this is very, very basic HTML. You need to do that to enable content editors to write in this way and see intimately how this will be experienced by an end user. So I think that the content management system is the best prototype tool you can get. You can get all the different involved parties into the content management system really early on, instead of doing Exure, instead of doing Word documents, and work together there. So you get content editors to do content inside the CMS while you build the template. So the templators, the front-enders, so UXers, they can actually see the realistic content, start building on that, and then they can say to the authors, okay, this is not going to work out because this is not really the user experience we want to do. So it's a collaboration tool. And I think that's one of my goals with Typo 3 Neos, that I really wanted to be strong in collaboration. So every party involved in a digital publishing project should get together in the content management system. You could actually end up sending tasks to each other inside the CMS. Because you will have experiences where you say, okay, I see here this section on my webpage, it kind of misses something. So you can send a task to the video team from the CMS. You need to do another video. And you can only get to that stage or get to that realization because you actually work together with the content and the design and everything in one place. And we already do this in many cases, but without realistic content. So the real difference here is that you get the content in. So I know I probably haven't spent very much time here, but what I wanted to do today, if someone is up for it, to just discuss the issue instead of me going through 100 more slides. I don't know how much time I've spent, but if anyone has comments or questions or want to debate something or want to this approach, then feel very free. Yeah. Can we get to a microphone? Yeah, there will be. Then we can get it recorded too, and everyone can hear what you're saying.
So we tried this a lot at our agency for like a year or something, but then you come up to some clients that they refuse to add content when they have no possibility to see the design.
Before they saw the design?
Yeah.
You mean?
They think it's too abstract to add content in a site when they can't see how it should be looking in the end.
Yes, I have also had that experience a couple of times. There are other problems where you have clients who want to present the design to the board, for example, for improvement, and that's sorry that I'm laughing, but it's just, to me as a UXer, it's quite funny. But because it has nothing to do with the end user experience, basically. But that's what I mean by taking each other's hands, really, and this is going to take a long time, I think. And I've also failed at it, really, quite a number of times, actually, where it just didn't really work out in the way I thought it should be. But just because we fail early on in this phase, it doesn't mean that it's a wrong approach. So I think you need to keep trying and keep talking to clients. Okay, what stands in the way? What's the real barrier here? And you said it was too abstract? They thought it was too abstract? Yeah. And you can solve that by doing not completely get all your content ready first, but do a content design collaboration, I think. So you do a workshop where you do design and content and templating at the same time. That seems to work for me sometimes. That's one approach to it. There are many different situations, and clients and agencies are extremely different. So, but I totally follow you. I know that experience as well.
Yeah.
Anyone else wants to comment? Yeah.
My question is, I see the idea and it fits very well, but for me only if the project is only about the homepage and the website. Did you think that you can took this process to a whole corporate design project where multi-channels to be designed? And for me, I don't see that process in a project where you have multi-channels to handle.
I think I know what you mean, but so I see this, you really need to prioritize your channels in multi-channel projects. And what I see happening is that there is not enough prioritization going on in multi-channel projects. So I think you need to figure out, okay, what are my channels? Then you have like 20 channels perhaps, and you also have a lot of unknown future channels that you also need to think about. That's really hard. And but out of those 20 channels, you usually have the case where you know, okay, these 3 are the most important ones. And then you can start building them. And that's also one of the things that we do with NIAS in the Preview Central, that we ask clients and agencies to prioritize those preview channels and only do the templating for them. But of course, it's a difficult thing to do if you have if I follow you correctly, if you do a community site, for example, that was one of the examples, right?
No, not only. I think that goes in the wrong direction. I mean, with multi-channels, I mean print materials and all the other stuff. And our customers, for example, every time says, okay, at first we want to see the corporate design for all the things, including the website. And so that doesn't work out.
Yeah. I started, let me see if I get you right this time then. I started working when I was 18 years old at a very large magazine production company in Denmark. They did tons of different magazines, and they had a content-first approach, actually. It's quite funny to see, because they did many channels, and they channeled their content into all kinds of different things. And they had this weird text editor. It was like looking at it was like, I don't remember the name, but it was really a hardcore IT kind of interface that the content editors had to use to tag their content with, and then afterwards it was sent to the layout process or the department that then layouted in Quark Express the different magazines that the content had to live in. And that worked really well, actually. And I think, of course, if you have a client that says, I need to see the design first, then of course it's really uphill. You really have to, then you might not be able to apply this process. I totally follow that, of course. It's quite simple. But what I see is that agencies kind of fail to communicate some of the advantages here. Because if you present the entire range of channels in the design, then you need to talk to your clients about the lie there is in it, because that's not the end user experience at all, because there's no real content, and the content is king. So again, there is probably many projects where this, for one of the other reasons, cannot really apply, but I do believe that agencies should take that responsibility a bit more seriously, to communicate to the client that if we are to build great user experiences with real content, then it doesn't make sense to design things first without the realistic content. That's my view on it. Does it make sense in terms of your question? Yeah. Anyone else is up for?
Me. I have this one question.
There you are.
Here I am. First of all, let me sing the Bee Gees song with you on stage, as you're such alone. No?
Pardon me?
Let us sing the Bee Gees.
You think of Bee Gees? Yeah, but I also thought that we can do a karaoke session right now if we have time for it. So
no, I have a serious question.
So everyone.
I have a serious question. We all speak about content. How do we measure the value of content? We saw on the first key note this morning that we try to measure the value of content by the output it generates, let's say in the e-commerce. You know, I just create more stuff, and so people don't return the stuff, or they don't even buy it anymore, so that I end up raising my margin. But do we have a way in Typo 3, CMS, NEOS, whatever, where we can really tell example how much time did I work on this content, who worked on this content, what is the outreach of this content? I mean, not just like looking at only visitors from Google, from this kind of stuff. So I think we would add a lot of value to this whole discussion if we would try to include some kind of a metrics on the content itself. So this is just one idea, or one of the ideas of the Forget IT project that we presented yesterday, is that we want to give you that possibility to see the content as a key, or as the center point of all your operations, and to have some valid metrics that you can present to your CEOs, to CTOs, and say, listen, this is the content, we worked this and this amount of hours on is exactly this press release, on exactly this page, this product page, and this is the output from it. So let's work on that maybe.
I totally agree. First of all, how much time do I have left? How much?
2 minutes.
Okay, I just thought of opening up Photoshop to show you something, but that will take too long. I focus a lot on user interfaces. That's kind of what I do, so I tend to solve things with interfaces instead of solving them with other kinds of processes or ways of doing things or business planning, etc. And in NIAS, one of the ways we are thinking about what that topic is that in the inspector on the right-hand side, there will be tabs up here, and one of the tabs is for metrics and for statistics, and for there'll be one for social integration as well. But what I try to do here is to give an interface space where you can get your metrics into it. And I don't know what the metrics should be and what you're going to do, because that's kind of other people's jobs, but I want to provide a space in the NIAS interface where you, right beside your content, have a field where you can, or an area of the screen where you can say, okay, how many visitors did this piece of content have? How many social interactions did we gain here? Or the more hardcore business KPIs or metrics. And so you have the end result where your content editors or content managers can see the metrics right next to the content piece. And I think to enhance content or to iterate on content, it can be highly valuable to see those two things right next to each other. That's kind of the approach we're following right now. But I'm not the person to fill out that space, but I just say, okay, there will be a space for it, and then we can put in the metrics there next to the content. So I think I've run out of time. So thank you, all of you.